well, I'm going to join a seminary. I said, you sure not? Others who said, hey, this one only pedophiles go to become priests.
Oh, is it?
I said,
People say that to you?
to me, it's like, hello.
Hello and welcome to this episode of TBH. Today we'll be speaking about priestly vocations, and with us we have Father Andrew, Father Andre, and Father Valerian, who's also the rector of St. Francis Xavier Major Seminary. So I just wanted to ask you guys, we did some research and it seems like people actually don't really know much about the priesthood. And also maybe in the secular world, the idea is that priests have quite a bad rep due to the sex scandals that are out there. So I think the question is actually, why would anyone want to be a priest? So I'll read out some questions and y'all can respond accordingly. Okay. So regular jobs usually pay well and only take up part of your life. But being a priest means that you have to give up your financial comfort and your whole life. Why would you make such a trade-off? Like, what makes it worth it?
For a start, I think it's not so much of looking at the priesthood like it's a career or a job, you know. You're asking just now also the question is like, why would any young person want to take up this call? So it is not a job, a career, or to look out for prospects. It's actually a vocation. And that's what a vocation is, because it is a response to a call. Vocare in Latin means a call. And whose call are we answering? It is the Lord Jesus' invitation to us. And that's why when a young man comes in to say he's feeling the Lord is calling him, it's more, we will discern with the person further. Is it out of his own interest or even his own aspirations, or is it really the Lord's discernment, the Lord's call for him to discern?
Actually, as priests, are you even allowed to have your own money? You know? Because like some people might think, I'm sorry, am I opening a can of worms?
No, not at all. Because there's a difference here between a diocesan priesthood and a religious priesthood. The diocesan priesthood, we take these promises of simplicity, all right? And that's why we are allowed to keep our own savings. In fact, if like your parents have bestowed, what's the word? Inheritance, bequeath you or something, you're allowed to keep because it's your own family, not property, but family inheritance. You're allowed to keep. Even your own insurance policies, your bank account, you're allowed to keep. We are allowed to keep.
But there's also priesthood that actually they take a vow of poverty. Is that correct?
The religious priest, yeah.
Okay. So why is there a distinction between?
Because the religious priests live in a community, and we have to go back to the charism of the founders. Like say the Franciscans, Carmelites, you know. They were known as Dominicans, they were known as the mendicant orders. The mendicant orders, that means to say they survive as a community by going around begging. You see, so whatever they beg is actually, like I go out and collect this, the food or property, I come back and share it with the rest of my community. All right? The diocesan priesthood never came out of this mendicant orders. It came straight from the time of Christ, you know, from St. Peter downwards. And it's not about taking the vows, but making the promises to live out a life of simplicity, obedience, chastity. So asking all these questions, I know some young people are asking about what I get, what I earn, what I can do with my money. It's actually by the way. Because what is most important is that I want to respond to the call to become a priest. And it's not about how much I can make, do I get a promotion? You know, these are very secular thinking. Whereas being a priest is living a life that is a reflection of who Jesus is. And I want the world to know Christ.
So there's a radical kind of generosity in the attitude that we are called to. So it's not about how much we have, not about how much we can give, in fact. Yeah, and so as long as we have that generous attitude, I think that's what the call is in terms of this. Because God is also generous with us, and God is providence itself. Right? So knowing that, then we have no fear of needing to hold on to these material things.
And whatever is given to us, say, people call this pay or salary, it's not that, it's just a stipend for us to survive, to live. To our little pocket money we get.
You buy toothpaste.
You buy toothbrush, toothpaste, maybe some medication if you need, you know what I mean? It's not to go investing and making profits out of it.
If money is really your concern, I don't think you'll be looking for the priesthood.
Given the history of abuse scandals, why would you want to be a priest? Like, why would you want to associate yourself with men who seem like...
When I first received the call to the priesthood, my first thought was not so much of the sexual scandal. It was to me, it's like, if God calls me, God invited me, then here I am, Lord. I'm in the hand of the Lord, and I respond to you and I say, yes, Lord, I will do what you want me to do, right?
But it was never a fear at all.
Not at all. Neither for me. I never thought about those sexual scandals. I knew they were existing. They were prevalent. Maybe I would say in the West and other parts of the world. For me, that wasn't a criteria or a factor. Whether
Did you fear that people will associate you with that group of people in that sense?
I wasn't fearful. I mean, mine wasn't. I had some Catholic colleagues, when I was going to quit my job, and I said, they said, well, what are you going to do? I said, well, I'm going to join a seminary. I said, you sure not? That one cannot make money, that kind of questions. But to me, I wasn't there to make money. I'm not in the priesthood to make money. I won't be able to anyway. Right? And there was others who said, hey, this one only pedophiles go to become priests.
Oh, is it?
I said,
People say that to you?
but to me, it's like, hello, you know me so long already. Do you think I'm going to do all this, right? So I don't. That's just the media's way of tarnishing, I think, the image. But deep down in my heart, if I believe the Lord is calling me, these things don't matter. I always tell as parents, if these are all the negative publicity, just remove the lalang, just remove the lalang and see where the path will lead you to.
I think the sexual scandals are a very sad reality of our church, right? And yet it also shows the humanness of the church, and yet the priesthood is much more than that, right? I feel that there is a real call to, because of this reality, to really show that there is a radical beauty in who Christ calls us to be. Yes, we are human, and yes, we are weak, and yes, all these things should not have happened, right? But how much more can we shine that radical beauty, that radical fervor and yes to the Lord, that we want to show that it's possible how to be Christ, another Christ in the world.
But does it not feel like you, have to walk on eggshells now? So like, for example, because of all these sexual scandals, then there are things that you need to be very careful about, right? Like make sure you're not in a room alone with like
Right.
and all that.
So we do caution, as young priests, and we do caution with seminarians, know your boundaries. When you're in a room with a person, make sure there's CCTV, or at least the door has got a glass door, or at least a opening, so you won't be incriminated for anything.
I don't know. I feel like it's like I cannot slip up. The minute you forget that all these precautions must be considered, then like wait, someone catch you. Not that you intentionally in the room alone, right, with the person, but what if someone catches you because you forgot to consider the precaution? Then suddenly you're in a compromising state.
And I think sometimes it's not just in the physical form, right? But it's also like things that you say. That, if let's say it gets recorded or something and taken out of context, then it may also seem like you just need to watch what you say very carefully, I feel, nowadays also. Especially with social media and stuff. Like, you don't know who is recording you when, to kind of...
But I think priesthood itself, the vocation is already very public. Correct, and so we are a very public figure, and therefore I think anyone who is intending to enter the priesthood or even to religious life have to also acknowledge that yes, there are certain part of my lives that will no longer be the private part, right? That the private situation where I just can do what I want to say, I can say what I want to say, I can do what I want to do. There are certain part of our lives where, example, what we say in our pulpit, what we say, example, even in video recording like this, what we also do can have impact and can also influence people around us. And so therefore, it is even better that if we are, as what Father Andrew was saying, right, if we can be a good role model for people, then I thought that would be even a positive impact compared to those negative examples that we have heard from priests in the past.
And I think this is really talking about authenticity. Like, I know I'm in this vocation or the work that I do is because this is who I am. What you see is what you get. Literally, I'm not two-facing is what, we call this, or being hypocritical. Yeah, so it's not that because I only during the service in church, right, everybody sees me, then I'm holy, holy, holy. When when I'm on my own, I do other things. It's not about that. It's about living the life fully, 100%.
Integral also, right?
To integrate. I think the word is to integrate.
What happens then if, let's say, I feel a call to the priesthood, but I don't answer, but I'm still living an integrated life?
It's a choice.
It's your choice. Nobody's forcing anybody to be a priest. It has to be willing. No coercion. Just like marriage, right? You cannot say the husband and wife, the woman, the bride is there forced to be married to this man.
But so do you believe that, like I've heard some people say that, if you don't answer the call, right, you'll regret one. Like
you feel some sort of emptiness, is it?
Yeah.
There is some truth in that, but I think better word to use is fulfilled. If you know that deep down you have been called and you still refrain or refuse or you do other things, the sense of longing will always be there. All right, then you might have missed it. Regret, yeah, perhaps, but I think the fulfillment may not.
It doesn't mean that God is not faithful, even if you choose another. Yeah, because I really believe there are lots more people, men, who are being called to priesthood by virtue of the fact that there are so many Catholics. Yeah, and the Lord desires to send His shepherds for His sheep. The Lord desires to put workers in the vineyard. Right? And so the calling is there. It's really like the Lord says also, the harvest is plentiful, but the
laborers are few.
Yeah.
So, but then the reverse, is it true? I mean, those who had
No call in yet, they force themselves into the
no.
There are cases, yeah.
Is it?
So that's why the simple process is very important. Number one, of course, you need to also have a spirit director who you need to journey for a period of time. It's not just today I think I have a call tomorrow I enter seminary. There's a time period, right? And I think very importantly also part of the discernment process is to discern with the church. And that's where the seminary fathers will come also to journey with the candidate, potential candidate to enter seminary. And only when the spiritual director, yourself and the church discern together and say, yes, probably there's a calling, and then that's where he will then issue an invitation to consider joining the seminary. So it's actually a deliberate.
Invite, right?
Yes. It's not an auto. Things have changed. Things have changed. Previously, okay, I will say during my time.
Frame up.
During my time is that. During my time, I'll just say, Father, I want to become a priest. Okay, come. We start in January. We come in March next year. You know that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Now, well, at least in Singapore, the process is a little bit different. We, after journeying with a person for a year and a half, 2 years, even 4 or 5 years, we've been journeying with young men. When the time is right, maybe after they finish their studies, finish 2-3 years of working or finish their bond or whatever they call it, then we will discern as the seminary to see, is this person ready to apply? And once we, as for meters, as what they call the admission board, once we feel that it's ready, then we will then tell the person, maybe you can now apply.
And then he has to apply so that he showed his willingness to want to also consider. So you can see there's a lot of this giving a choice, the deliberation of choice, right? I invite and everything, and then I respond to this. Yeah. Even for us, right, after we complete our seminary formation, right, we need to apply to
get ordained.
To get ordained to the
It's
deacon.
not auto, no?
Then you can finish seminary, then you become priest, right?
Yes.
For what? Then you study for what?
That's why
Waste so many.
it's not, we don't think it's wasted, but it's really a deliberate choice to say that, yes, I know that this is a call for me and therefore I would like to apply for it. And then wait for the response to say, yes, I accept this application and therefore I will then ordain you. So
Wait,
basically
I don't understand. But if the person finished studying already, then
That's
they
also-
never apply, then you won't go and talk about, hello, where's your application? You won't go and ask the dude.
We'll just say, okay, you are open to apply. The time is now right for you to apply. Then if that person says, Father, maybe give me some time to think about it further. I respect him and said, maybe he's not ready.
So then where does he go and work first or stay in seminary?
Up to him. I mean, everyone's got a different story. Everyone's got a different call in that sense.
So the person can take like a sabbatical year and then like go and travel around the world.
Sure.
Okay.
But like that's not waste of resources, man.
For who?
For the church,
Yeah, the church, invest in this.
If, that's why I say, if you come from that angle, it is. The material will think that way. This is Singapore thinking. But on our part as church, we are helping another person to be a better disciple of Jesus.
So like
And we are willing to take a risk to invest.
So if let's say the person really go and take 1 year off and then come back to you and say, okay, now I'm ready to be ordained. Will you straight away say okay, or you will like, must like?
No, firstly, why did he take that break is important. Sometimes it's not a person wanting to take a break, Sometimes it's a church telling you should take a break. Perhaps you should consider taking some time off to think about. But this is not only after the 7 years. Every year from junior year, we're telling people, maybe look into this area of your life. Perhaps you should do like that. We
Invite you to go to the next year.
Everyone must invite again. No need, right?
No, not everyone must invite. It's just every year we have, what's the word we use? Assessments, annual assessments and then chit chats like that to say, look into this area. Are you very maybe harsh with your words to others? Are you slacking your studies? Little things we just help people to.
Like report card.
But not written.
So you can see from what we've been saying that discernment is not in a bubble, discernment is not in a vacuum, right? Discernment is really something that is communal as well. And the church discerns together with you, right? So yes, you may feel a call to the priesthood, but that also needs to be purified, that also needs to be further understood in the context of where you are applying for, right? And so nobody can say that you are not called, but we probably can say, is this suitable for you? Is this context where you are being called to be rooted in. Yeah, and that's the role of the church, that's the role of the admission boards and things like that.
There's also this sentiment, if I leave the seminary, I'm a failure.
I don't know where people get this idea, but I've said it a few times before, even on the Catholic radio also, it's not failure, because remember the goal, okay, the Singaporean will think I drop out from school. But the journey in the priesthood is not about dropping out or anything. It's about being a better disciple, to be formed to be a disciple of Christ, to serve him as a priest. I can leave the seminary, but I'm a better disciple, but I need not be a priest. So it's not about failure or success,
Yeah.
But it's just a very stigma that is
Yeah, but I think
right.
like normally when you go church or whatever, then people know like, oh, you drop out from seminary, they say, so sayang.
Yeah.
That in itself is already a connotation
I
that
thought it's even the person is more courageous, because I said this whole thing is about discernment journey, right? And if in his part of discernment journey he discern and also together with the church realized that perhaps this is not my call, then he's actually making he knowing that he's going to face all this, and to leave, to say that yes, this is not God's call for me and I have to leave. I think that is even more courageous, because he is actually wanting to do what God wants him to do, rather than what he's going to face or what he's going to be ashamed that he's facing the world.
I feel most of the time I hear the celebration. Oh yeah, praise the Lord! A young man has become a priest. I always hear that. Yeah. Then after that, when you see the guy like leaves the seminary quiet, no one acknowledges it.
because there are many factors for the leaving. And it need not only be him wanting to leave, it could be the formation is telling him not to continue. It could be dismissal. Yeah. There are many factors. So it's better to be quiet also, because it's more to protect
No, as in
the
like
person's
even
privacy.
when people know about it, like I just feel like people don't wanna, like there's this awkward feeling like don't talk about it, like because there's shame.
I think that's
involved.
unfortunate also.
Yeah.
I think we can afford to grow a bit more, even as a whole church, in that, right? That vocation is about discernment, and this is part of discernment, right? And we should, in a way, connect, understand, celebrate proper discernment. Yeah, if that is really what is God's call for.
because I think somehow the notion is that if you leave, then it seems like the other vocations out there is not on par with the priestly vocation. I don't know, is that
I mean, I think we grieve at every lost marriage as well.
every breakup,
Yeah.
divorce, or also same, right? It's like we feel sad lah.
No, but also that time when my ex was going to become a priest at that point of time, right? Then when people knew about it, what they would say to me is, never mind, it's a good sacrifice. Yeah. So it felt like I had to just suck it up lah. You sacrifice so that the church benefits from it. Yeah. So I think there was that perception that like the priestly vocation is the best. You should support it. So when I was going through that, like in the thick of it, actually there were a few women around me who was going through the same thing. Yeah, and it did feel at that point of time that the church had abandoned me. Because like now the church is celebrating over this new guy who is going to become a priest, right? Then who cares about him? No one. So among the sisters who were going through the same thing, I think we just had to like huddle up and like, okay, never mind, we just support each other. But it felt very sad that there isn't anyone who's really like speaking and journeying with like the women who
had been abandoned.
broken-hearted. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I think maybe something we can afford to look into as well.
Yeah.
Look into
If y'all can, I think it would be great.
the ministry?
No, not just in ministry, but just to, as in to also in our process of discernment, when we do our vocation camps and all that, really to invite the guys to think of what your consequences of your actions, and how much more is it a triumphant thing versus then what was your relationship about really? If the relationship was something real as well, then how can you also work together as this friendship so that it can be better received, in the way that you discern, rather than now I'm going for something greater.
I mean, I don't think my ex just abandoned me lah, but I think it's just like the journey as a whole felt very like, you know what, your pain is less important, right? And like this, like having a new priest, prospective new priest is more important, so you should just be okay with that. I think that was the sentiment that, like as a whole, even if it's like just regular churchgoers, they also like were conveying that, which was very dismissive, I think, of pain. Yeah. So if you're
Hopefully we can
ministering to
move
people,
a bit more in that direction.
We wanted to ask like what are the requirements, to join the seminary? Like
Firstly, I would think for any candidate, is it someone who is healthy? I mean, sufficient health, requirements. We can't really have people who come into the seminary and we have to look after their hospital bills and all that. You know what I mean? It's more about someone who's healthy, someone who's got a good head on his shoulders, logical thinking, not controversial. You know, look at all these requirements.
But if let's say the person feels called, but then the health not.
But it's going to be more of a burden for the person, right?
I thought you were going to say for the church. Yeah.
Both ways. No, both ways. Because for the church, we are not here to. It's not a hospital, right?
Oh.
I mean, I've got. Yeah, but not the seminary, right? The
Seminary is not the church. Okay, we'll just wait.
I think you also need to be very clear. Feeling caught doesn't mean you are caught. That's why I think the discernment process come back again very important, right? And then let's say you feel caught, okay, let's say you feel caught. Who is calling you? Is it your own calling? It could also be Satan's calling. It could also be God's calling, right? And that's why discernment is very important. And that's why all these are all the part of the discernment process. So you say that you can feel caught, then yes, come discern with the church will discern together with you, and together we will then discern what's God's call for you. I think that's very, very important.
I mean, I'll give you another analogy. I've got parents who say, Father, my son very lazy, cannot get up in the morning, and then very naughty, come back from school late or whatever. I put him in the seminary, cannot. I say, hello, but the seminary is not a place, it's not a discipline. Yeah. Exactly. So same thing about someone who's sick, right? It's not there to look after. We're not a nursing home.
Yeah.
Right? We are trying to train soldiers. I don't know whether you use this word, but maybe in the olden days they will use this word, soldiers, for Christ. But if people have to be at least healthy, alert, mental stability, that is. And of course, the other question you ask about what are the requirements, if someone who's still under scholarship or bond or how do I say it? Debts, paying off tuition, financial, they have to be freed from this also.
How about age?
Currently, we look at anybody above 21 to 35.
Also, the max is 35.
Yeah. Because once you're a bit older, you already got your life's opinions and all that fixed, right? It's a bit difficult for formation. Yeah. And of course, if 35, by the time you finish, it'll be 40-ish. By the time you're into ministry, sometimes you just draw your CPF already. You know what I mean? It was a bit... So we have to look at certain age, at least in the Singapore context. When we say 21 to 35, I don't mean 21 straight away you come in, because a typical male Singaporean, 21, he's probably still studying.
Yeah.
Likely national service. And let's say if he's going through tertiary education, he will only finish 26, 27. Sometimes you have to work, pay back the bond or loans. So I would say the typical Singaporean male will be late 20s, early 30s.
If let's say the person cannot really study, say for example, maybe just got O-levels or something, right? Then is that okay?
Well,
can he still be?
In Singapore, we have a minimum educational qualification. At least you have diploma, polytechnic diploma, or A-levels.
Because I think the rigor of the study is still required for us to manage the philosophical and the theological studies. And so there's a certain level of cognitive and systematic thinking of how we want to approach these two topics, right? So therefore, I think what Father Bell mentioned about diploma A level is to be the minimum required.
Minimum required, at least if there is some research to be done, some essays to be written.
The thought process, right?
At least the person is able to do it and know how to go to the library to look for certain things or online to search. It's not so much of just
memorizing.
Yeah, it's about.
But what if the person really feel called? I really feel like God's calling me, but I just don't do well in the Singapore curriculum.
Correct. We will say yes, you may be called, but perhaps not to the Singapore diocese.
Really?
I have told people that.
So means other dioceses maybe don't need. So
every diocese has got its unique requirements. Okay, but generally, what we want is someone who has got a heart to serve, a heart to cry for
because
Christ.
people say St. John Vianney, he's not very bright, right? I mean, from what I can remember. But
Yes and no, because St. John Mary Vianney, actually, it wasn't about his studies, it was his Latin, the language.
So if the
he had
person
struggled as a Frenchman, he had difficulty with Latin.
but he got substance lah.
He can have, we already see in his preaching. So that was where the struggle was. It's not that he wasn't smart, it was more of the struggle.
But does the person, when you tell the young man that, do they not feel hurt? I feel called to serve in the local diocese,
let's take a look. If you want to be a pilot, you also need certain educational qualifications.
But this is part of calling.
Yeah.
I remember one incident when I was in missionary or charity's home. Okay, and then I was just having this conversation with the sisters, right? And then we were washing the clothes, right, together with them, as part of my seminary formation. And then I was just asking, so what are the criteria to even be part of the missionary charity of sisters, right? And then the sister looked at me and said, oh, one of the criteria is minimum you need O levels. I was like, huh? You need O levels to wash clothes? Precisely. I was like, but then you see, if even a religious group itself, example like missionary charity sisters, where you assume that they'll be going to serve the poor, I don't need such education, and then they also require minimum O level. And then that's the first question I asked, why do you need that? I said, because the rigor of the theological studies that they also minimally need requires you to have this understanding, this comprehension of this subject, and therefore to them O level is the basic necessity for such understanding of theology. So that's why I thought that even as a priest in the future, I mean, if you want to be priest in the future, you will be bombarded with more questions and more deeper understanding. Therefore, if you would like to, if you are able to handle all these sort of questions, then you should have a certain level of education qualification.
Aptitude, yeah.
But I mean, apart from the education thing, right, from what I've heard, there's also the element of like they need to, or y'all would have had to go through like what, psyche tests or something like that,
Psychological
right?
assessment.
Yeah, so as to why, I mean, wouldn't people wonder, like, if the vocation is really a call, or the priesthood is really a vocation and a call, right, then why is it that all these things require so much? Isn't it just God call me, then here I am, Lord?
Then I will ask the question, if God called me, I can just do that, but how do you think that this is God calling me to be the priest? If I don't meet the minimum requirements of any job for that matter, I'm not called to that particular career, right, or not? Okay. So I mean, want to serve the poor, I mean, want to give my life to all this. I always ask the question back, do you need to be a priest to serve the poor? Do you need to be a priest to do these things? Need not be, what? So there's a deeper question that we have to ask. What really is a priest? What really is the call? So we want to look out for people who are courageous enough to stand against the currents of the world, to be Christ in the midst of this turmoil that we see is what's happening in the world today.
Why is the psyche test important, by the way?
Psychological stability, a bit of intelligence, quotients there. Emotional is very important, because if a person is emotionally hurt, he will be hurting other people in ministry.
But then all of us are hurt.
Yes, so we need to process lah. So the psychological assessment will say, look out for this area lah, or help. It's very private and confidential. Even the person doesn't read it himself.
Oh, how do you mean? As in, with the
But
therapist?
there's an interview, of course, with the psychologist, but the assessment isn't given to that person.
But as the rector, will you use the information to sort of determine?
Not against him lah, not against him, to help the person. I mean, that's the reason why we put the person through the test lah, to be helped.
So do you also like ask like whether the person, say for example, has like ADHD or is on a spectrum, that kind of thing? Is that part of it or no?
Usually these things, people do volunteer the information. I wouldn't ask, Andrew, do you have ADHD?
Yeah,
I wouldn't ask that. Yeah, I wouldn't ask that. But sometimes when a person's on a spectrum, we kind of like, have you looked into this area of your life? Just ask the question the other way around just to help. But our current situation is that these things, sometimes we look at it as a medical condition. We might suggest that perhaps this is not for you lah.
Because it all comes back to the self-awareness lah. And all these areas help us to be more aware, have more data, more information about who we are and how we are called.
But if let's say the ADHD and things like that are managed, meaning the person has been going through therapies and all those kind of things, like, is it still?
We'll need a doctor's letter to say so and so is able to, say, function under stress. You know what I mean?
Like highly functional person. Okay.
So I heard also that like before a guy enters the seminary, like if let's say he have never dated before, then I wouldn't say rector, but someone would say you might want to.
Say rector.
You need to go and date first. So is it true?
Must date meh?
Is it
must date?
I wouldn't say must date. It'll be good to expose yourself to different...
But so bad.
Different what?
No, expose yourself to relationships, to people. You see, don't forget, on the other hand, it's like some may enter the seminary because they're afraid to be parents, afraid to be husbands, afraid to be
girls.
Yeah, because all this will affect the relationship eventually, and even if you're ordained, no?
But then if you ask them to go and date, then after that the girl will
No, I
be
won't say
heartbroken.
won't force the person to go and date.
Why
No,
play
not that.
with the girl's heart?
I'll just say, what is your relationship like? How are you with girls and how are you with...
Not interested.
There are priests who probably have not dated before.
Sure,
Yeah.
definitely,
So can no need to go date first.
Yeah,
When
no,
I first
it's not
read it, I was so
compulsory.
offended.
It's not compulsory.
Yeah.
It will be quite offensive.
Yes.
Yeah, because
so my background is my ex-boyfriend broke up with me to join the priesthood. At the point
Oh,
of time, wait. that experience was like very difficult, lah, right? So when I first heard this, I was like, what's this, playing with ghost hearts? Huh? Must go and date first. So I just thought it was very rude. But no, it's not true, is it?
Come on. Is it true?
No. We have to look at this first. Okay, there are times when we tell people do this is because maybe we ourselves are not so sure about his aptitude to even take a life of celibacy. Say, why don't you experience, if you're in a relationship or you have someone you're interested, maybe you just explore that path and yourself first. It's not so much before you enter, you must go and date first. No.
Okay, yes. Thank you.
It's the other way around. It's like maybe we're also not too sure whether he can live this life. So why don't you, if there's somebody in the picture, if somebody in the
But if
scene.
you have, then drop it, right?
Yeah, no need go and find, hey, Mary, come and date with me first. Because seminary say I must go and date. No.
The criteria is being able to relate to men and women.
Yeah, that is the thing.
Yeah. Must wait.
Besides that, it's not men and women, it's also whether can I take a life which is
Celibate.
celibate life,
So this whole celibacy thing, right? Why is it necessary? Because sometimes it feels like it causes more problems.
That's how the media would project, okay, all these abuses are going on because priests do not have any sexual outlets. No, but you see, okay, the thing is that over the centuries, of course, priests were married, okay, I think until the 10th century or something.
The thing is, St. Peter also married. So how did this whole thing about celibacy and not a priest cannot be married came about?
Eventually, it was also due to historical reasons. If you know church history a bit,
No, we don't know. You must tell.
there are some who property, inheritance. Instead of for the church, it goes to the family. Say,
You mean now when you die, then your money will go to a church?
it's up to your will, but usually there's no
But you don't have
contention.
dependents. You don't have a wife or children.
There's nobody to fight over
Yeah.
church property in that sense.
For me also, I think it made more sense, right? For example, if I also have a wife and kids, and then I also ask to minister to the people of God, then actually it's actually already very demanding as already a husband and family man. And then now also, priesthood also is very demanding. It's not that we're just sitting in our office and then just celebrating mass on Sundays only. That's what a lot of people concept. We only say mass on Sundays. There's a lot of work need to be done also, right? And so that is actually very stretched for any person. And so I think throughout the years, as the church starts to continue to discern, see what's God's plan for the priesthood, I think there's some decision that makes wiser decision that says that it is perhaps best for people who are called to priesthood to also consider, and at that point in time to consider celibacy, because if not, you will be struggling between marriage life and then you'll be struggling ministry. Like for me, I really find no more time for even for myself. I also much time for all my vocation service. Then I still got another person and other kids. I think I'll go mad.
Imagine if you're doing your ministries and then your kid has got fever, you need to go to the hospital. We are torn, what to do. Okay, that's the practical that part of it. Then the reason why it became, I think, must be the 10th century, I can't remember when it was, that it was mandatory for priests to be celibate, is also, besides property and all that, so someone who comes up and say, I want to be a priest and I'm willing to forego any of these things, even family life, sexual relationships, companionships, I'm willing because of my love for Christ. I want to do this because of Jesus. It means I'm giving up all these things because of what the call is for me.
But then the thing is, God also placed these desires in our hearts.
Definitely. In fact, in Genesis chapter 2, it says, go forth and multiply. So many people say, hey, but priest, you're not multiplying, we're not following what Bible wants. Yes, I may not be doing it, but because I'm giving up something for a higher good.
So do you think the church is wise in...
I should think so.
I thought it's wise. I got no time for myself also.
Very much. I think it's a wise recommendation.
Of course, this is the human practical aspect also, but there's also the theological aspect of celibacy.
Right.
Yeah, which is the heavenly marriage, right? Not that priests are any better or religious brothers and sisters are any better, right? But it's that sign of the heavenly marriage that in heaven there is no marriage, right? And therefore we are all called to be in union with God. And so this already on earth, that sign of that union with God in a way of giving ourselves looking towards that heavenly marriage.
But so you broke up with your ex to join?
No.
Oh, I wanted to ask. Sorry. I wanted to ask, but do you not, like, especially if, let's say, you do have a very real desire for marriage, right? And if, let's say, for example, someone really did break up to join, like, how do you even make sense out of that, like, and reconcile it, especially if you know that it's a man-made law? Like, it's so, actually can one, but then the church go and say cannot, you know what I mean? It's not like Jesus said cannot.
But then also must remember, right? Even though it may not be exactly the word Jesus said cannot, it's not a scripture per se, right? But then also the church itself is also the body of Christ. The church itself can also say that yes, we made a certain decisions that say that if you want to join the priesthood, one of the so-called criteria is that you need to make a promise of celibacy. Correct? So the church itself, herself, as the spouse of Christ, can also set the requirement of what she wants for her priest to do so. Correct? But the church not saying that it is the die is fixed law, but it's at this point in time now, it is the law of the church and it is the recommendation of the church to also say that you are going to take a promise of celibacy. Can you do it? And therefore, if you struggle all this, therefore that's where it's part of your discernment process also. If you're someone who
the church is a jealous woman.
I want this man for myself, no other woman.
I think the church is not saying one for myself, but church is saying that this is the requirement of the priesthood, this, right? And therefore, if you were to be sent out to the world as a priest in the parish priest or this, then the demand of this would be a lot on you, right? So therefore, it is better for you to be in celibacy. I think that's where the church comes in. It's for herself, but it's actually for the people of God.
So if it's really, I am struggling with all this, and I know maybe this is not the path for me to take. But then, if I believe that if the Lord is really calling me, He will help me to overcome. Which actually, I can tell you, it is possible.
Celibacy is a gift. It's actually a charism of the Holy Spirit to be able to be given that grace to give yourself for the people rather than just for one person. So in a sense, this part of the discernment to be able to know.
It's a beautiful gift, It's a beautiful gift because it's a gift from the Holy Spirit so that He's freeing me from these, which is, okay, we're all human beings, we need this. But if the Lord can do these things, I feel now happier even to serve the masses, more people in fact. And I won't pick and choose only, I like this kind of people, this type of people, this kind of, or this gender only I serve, you know what I mean? It's free.
You don't feel like you're missing out?
I think those are days gone by already for me.
Okay.
But the earlier part of the journey got lah.
There were struggles, definitely there were struggles. When you're serving, when you're celebrating a marriage, I'm thinking, why I should be there actually, not him. No lah, I don't say that to the groom lah.
There's a lot other intimacies as well, the friendships, the being able to connect with each other.
But it's very different lah. Intimacy, yes, but it's still very different.
But intimacy need not be sexual intimacy all the time, right?
Yeah, but the very real struggle is the sexual intimacy, ma. No man.
I think most priests struggle I'm not saying deny there is also struggling for sexual intimacies, but there are also other struggles also, right, like loneliness and all this. I think that something that is very real, but also not only for priests, for even as a married couple, if the couples are not talking to each other or they just spending time doing their work and everything and with their kids, all this, they also feel lonely in all these areas.
I feel there are a lot of celibate couples.
Yeah, celibate couples. And there are also couples who wish they're not even married, After years, there's some couples who wish that, right? Then they don't talk to each other, then the family... So there are flip sides of everything.
And also couples, right, there are challenges also, right? Even I'm married, I'm just faithful to one, but I also get temptations to also maybe have others and also do things that will be undesirable, right? And so I don't think this struggle is only just for priesthood.
It's not the
I
priesthood.
think it's for every man, every woman who are a sexual human being. But important is how then do we respond to these temptations and passions. Yeah, we continue to struggle, but I think as we continue to grow older and also grow in our priesthood, I think for me, less and less lah. Yeah, and I find
it will dissipate. I mean, it's really about service. If your heart and mind is really for the people of God, the Lord will empower us, I would say. The Lord will empower us to continue His ministry. Because ultimately, it's not my ministry, it's not my work. I'm doing it because of the love of God, because of who Jesus is to the world.
But do you at any point feel like by being celibate, you are rejecting a part of yourself? Meaning, because like you said, right, we are sexual beings and everything. So now you have to tame these desires that are very real and natural, ma.
I think everybody also must tame, right? Everybody, right? Even as a married man, I also need to tame, right? I cannot every time, hey, I want, and then the wife says, okay.
But the reality is actually this like that.
Right.
No, but it shouldn't be the reality.
Yeah.
Correct. That's why.
No, but you see, even if they are not like the every day I want to have sex, right? But even if they maybe once a week or like chill, everyone is like agreeable. Okay, this is our schedule. We're all at peace. But the thing is, they still have an outlet. But for the priesthood, it's like you need to tame it. Cannot at all.
I think it's a very warped way to see sexuality as an outlet. Yeah, because sexuality is part of our identity, right? And so it's the sexual act is really the giving of ourselves to our partner, to our not just partner but our spouse in that marriage context. And so because of that union, because of that giving of self, then it is not about me. It's about the other person. How am I willing to go to the other? How am I loving by giving of myself in sacrifice? And that is really that union that we are seeking. Yeah. So if sex is about me, then we are.
There's selfishness in there, right? The whole thing, which happens to be the majority of people in the world. But we have to understand that God made us sexual beings. It's not only for ourselves. It's for the world. Our sexuality is to live out for others. But
Okay, the next question. Can I join the priesthood if I am...
you are?
No.
women priest,
The question is, can I join the priesthood if I'm same-sex attracted?
Okay, there's nothing to hinder the person, but we'll try to process this. Is it still being lived out? Because all of us are made as sexual beings, right? We will be attracted one way or another. But what are we doing with the attraction? You know what I mean? I mean, if I'm heterosexual also, can I join the seminary? Why not? Because the idea is not about entering seminary and then still wanting to live out a life of same-sex attraction or opposite-sex attraction, right? Yes, there are cases like this. People do ask, and our current situation is that we try to help process the person to see, is this really your call or not? Okay.
Would you say, because when you are in the seminary, it's like all men, right?
Exactly.
Then-
So I have to highlight the environment. What's going to happen? It's just like in your national service, in your army. You're going to have this. How are you going to react? How are you going to cope with the proximity of being with people of the same sex?
So this is something that you try and find out before they...
I won't use the word find out because find out sounds very investigative. It's not about finding out. It's more about helping to process and journey with the person.
But by saying that we're helping the guy process, right? Does that sort of imply that don't really want, Because you're saying
It depends lah. There are cases where you say we don't really want or they don't really.
you as in the
There
rector.
are cases, yeah.
Yeah, so we are sort of saying that it's best not to, and maybe this is not your vocation. Is that what we're saying?
I don't think we cannot blanket.
It's not black or white, It's
Both
not,
fences is all about accompaniment, right? So every person is a unique person. So you're trying to guide the person's discernment. Yeah, and that is the goal. Not about I want, I don't want. Yeah, it's really where is God calling.
So if let's say it has been discerned that there is a real call, right? It's just that maybe this is part of his journey also. It's still possible in some way, as long as that's processed.
I would say, yes.
Okay, so the next question is, if I am divorced or my marriage is annulled, then can I become a priest?
Annulled, yes, because annulment means the marriage never even took place, right? Or zeroed lah, is it zeroed? Can. Yes, it was someone who is also lost his wife, widowed, and yes, there are cases.
Oh, can
Yeah, but our neighbouring diocese have got a few who have already this, what we call late vocations lah. But then of course the children and all must be able to fend for themselves, not defend. Fend for themselves. They must be already of a certain age. That
Your
the children
responsibilities as a father must still be
there for the
taken care of.
children. And they're not relying on your income because there's no income literally. So there are many factors lah. But it's possible.
For divorce, I think the church vocabulary, no such thing called divorce. So you're always married under the church eyes. And therefore, because you're married, your vocation is in the marriage life. Therefore, you will not be eligible when you're married to consider priesthood vocation.
So if annulled, then it's okay.
Well, not this means the marriage is not.
It's really case to case lah. This one is not a outright answer because
Case
you
by
have to
case
look at the
basis.
person. Why was he even? What was the history behind it?
Or
lah?
intended marriage and all this, right? Yeah.
In fact, it's a question that is asked of the application on the application form. No, have I attempted marriage? Have I committed murder? There are things. Have I
That's the
killed
legal
anything?
language.
So if let's say someone has committed crime, but maybe not killing people
Gone to prison and all that.
Yeah.
It will definitely be it's more like it does work against you lah because your reputation, your obstacle,
So you all will take it into consideration. for sure as well.
definitely lah.
But
You have
depending
to
on
declare
the
also in
crime
the form, all this you have to declare if I've been in prison or if I.
But you all will check me.
It's not that, you see, because through the journey and getting to know the person, we will know a lot already. You know what I mean?
Yeah, your journey very closely.
Very importantly, also, a part of the discernment process is we need to be as truthful as
And
possible.
honest and
honest.
open, yeah.
And this is part and parcel of the
During the seminary also they are told, the seminarians are all told, because if you're not open, if you're hiding things, it's very difficult to help form the areas will be wasted, you know what I mean? Because you're always hiding and trying to do something else behind our backs and or behind the formators' backs, not our backs, sorry.
What would you say are some of the challenges of a priesthood in that sense?
For me, I think one of the struggle is actually in priesthood, actually, first of all, importantly, is you need to know first of all yourself first. How am I able, when people around me do certain actions or words, how am I reacting to all these things? So from when you know yourself better, that's where after that you can then start to respond to the people around you. So but to me, that's one of the most difficult things to do to grow in terms of our humanness, because to know ourselves is something that we will then have to reflect, and then we then have to see whether we want to make the choice to change, so that we can then respond to other people around us in a more compassionate way, in a more in a more human relation.
I think in our generation, the emphasis was a lot more on the human formation, right? So the sense that actually, if we are able to be, we have to be good fathers and good husbands, so that we can be good priests in a sense. You know, to be able to be a good father and to be a good husband in the relationship that you have, in the way that you are able to give of yourself, in the way that you are able to think for others and give your life for others. It's the same, because if not, that whole relational aspect is missing, and you'll be a very pie in the sky kind of priest, only talking about theology, not really being able to relate to people. Yeah, and I think the human aspect is the most important part of our vocation.
If someone comes in to say I want to become a priest, but I would rather just stay in my room or stay in my office or stay in the sacristy, then I say yes, that could be an answer maybe a few centuries before. But in this day and age, in the 21st century, and with our late Pope emphasizing the fact of the priest must go out to smell the sheep, and the church must be a place that's like a field hospital, it's a lot to do with how much I want to go out to the people, of how we see the late Pope Francis live his life.
And that's why I think seminary is 8 years long as well. Right? People say 8 years is very long, but it's not just about the studies, it's really about the human relationships. And the more we allow ourselves to be immersed in the relationships with all its frictions, with all its differences, the more we actually learn how to be more human. Yeah, and if we don't allow ourselves to do that, actually we are limiting ourselves.
So many people tend to think that seminary formation is all about studies, passing exams. That may be the case centuries before, but today, 99.9% of our seminarians have already studied, have got degrees, university degrees. So to study isn't really much of a struggle, I would say, or problem, but it's more about getting to know themselves so that they can be the face of Christ to the world.
Have you all thought about quitting? Can you all quit?
I think a bit premature for us as 1 year, 2 years.
Why can you really have the thought, ma?
不要聊，不要聊。
It's like,
Maybe that's true, but
but it's very good that you don't have the thought. Very good.
I think it's not about quitting. If that quitting idea, maybe during seminary already will say, maybe this is not for me. It's why would a person quit anything? Too demanding, too stressful, can't cope. But as I said earlier on, it's left to the individual how he wants to manage his time. But if it is really something that I want to serve the Lord, don't forget the back of this whole thing is about Jesus Christ. It's not about a mundane job, it's not even a job. If it's really about Jesus Christ and I know He has called me to build His kingdom, it's not about quitting. It's not about giving it up. One thing I know is actually it's a vocation that is very fulfilling, because you help make sense of problems for people, bring meaning to their lives, you know what I mean? It can be very demanding physically, mentally, but at the end of the day, it's always, if I did it for Jesus, if I did it for Christ, I will have this sense of fulfillment, that I've made a difference in somebody else's life or this group of people's lives. And no matter how drained you are, it's a feeling of, thank God, thank you for calling me to be your priest.
Thank you for watching today's episode of TBH. If you have any thoughts or any comments or any other topics you're asked to discuss about, you may comment in the section below.
like, share, and subscribe, and remember to hit the notification bell. We'll see you in the next episode.
Yeah, can, but a bit more
Energetic.
energetic. Yeah.
Come on, welcome the men. Welcome to the men in the priesthood.
Okay, how come the men to be?
Because this episode will be just before vocation retreat.
It's fine, but I think your eye keep darting.
Oh, my eyes so small so can see. Oh.